Betty chimes in from Southern California. She says, Mr. Chapman, the TARP outlays this year have been reduced by $203 billion, supposedly, by the Congressional Budget Office.
All right, stop right there. Stop right there for a second. Those funds went back to the Treasury, and they're going to be used to bail out the commercial real estate industry.
Ah, okay.
And it's going to be like next to nothing. I mean, it's an attempt to help, but they need a lot more money than that. We're talking, hundreds of billions of dollars. And but that's where the money's gone that was turned back in, or at least that's what the government says they're going to do with it. So please continue.
Well, that was it. Just she just wanted to know about if there was any validity to that fact.
Well, I don't know about the number. I don't know if it was $203 billion, and I doubt it. I think it was less than that. But the point is, there was money, and that's what they intend to do with it. At least that's what they said. I don't know. Maybe it's going to end up in the pocket of Larry Summers or Ben Bernanke, or who knows? I mean, the corruption is so unbelievable. It's just beyond words.
She came back and she said it's in an article that she read from the News Daily at newsdaily.com this morning.
And did they mention in that article that they were going to use the funds for that?
Yes, sir. The CBO estimated at $283 billion to be turned back to the government.
Well, I question their estimate. I think it's way off, but irrespective, that's what they're going to do with the money, to whatever the figure is. And the only reason the TARP funds were turned back was that all of the executives would have had to cut their salaries to $500,000 a year from billions and hundreds of billions of dollars that they receive. I mean, the whole society is out of whack. I mean, people making, $50 million a year and people starving in the streets. It's crazy. And this is the sort of thing that leads to revolution. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is Marie Antoinette saying, well, let them eat cake. And 300,000 of those nobility in France at that time lost their heads. So this should be a lesson to the Illuminati, which is trying to do what it's doing to our country and the rest of the world. We're not going to stand for it. You better stop it, because if you don't, that's going to be the end result. Trials for treason and execution.
I understand that. A quick question from an active duty Marine in Charlotte, North Carolina. He says, Mr. Chapman, in the rural areas of in and around Charlotte, both into Georgia and into the northwestern section of Charlotte, in the rural areas, there are hundreds of $100,000 homes. When I say $100,000 homes, meaning homes over $500,000, there are over 300 $1 million and above homes with large acreages as well as small acreages laying vacant. And yet the newspapers tell us that the building boom in the real estate market is going up. And I personally have ridden on helicopters through these estates, and it looks like the spiders could take these buildings over as they look like ghost towns where there's 4 or 5 homes in a cul-de-sac where they sit on 1 and 2 acres of land. And it's amazing of what's going on over here, the lies that are coming out.
Well, you're just going to have to become Spider-Man. It's interesting, and I got to tell you what it's called in Spanish, hombre araña. I just thought I'd throw that in as an extra. But, Charlotte has had now this just shows you how phony the figures are, borne out by the testimony that we just heard. Charlotte has been the least affected of any large city in the United States. Now, in fact, up until about maybe a year or 9 months ago, they had growth. And now they're turning negative slightly, which means, to me, basing it upon the statement that this gentleman just made, that all their figures are phony. And how they're phony is the banks are not listing the empty homes. They're letting them sit there. And many banks are allowing the people to continue to live on in the homes. And these are the ones you wouldn't know about because they're not empty. And so goodness knows, all over the country, not just in Charlotte, what the real inventory of homes for sale really is. Maybe it's not 11 months approximately of inventory. Maybe it's 22 months for all we know. The lies are just unbelievable. And it's the banks and Wall Street and Washington, and in your case, they're in Charlotte, which is a very nice town. I like it. It might be even greater, and nobody even knows it. And so I think you may have opened up a big can of worms here. So I want to thank you, Spider-Man.
Mr. Chapman, as a Marine in El Toro, California, the base is empty, but we have helicopters that come in here for ground training departure from helicopters. We are witnessing large amount of vacant homes in the mountain areas that, and we agree with you and acknowledge the fact that there are people living in these homes that are not paying for them. As one Marine in one unit has gone to the extreme of taking his bike into these areas and has found a number of people who just pay the interest or pay the insurance and the taxes. Several homes are still up for foreclosure. The signs sit on the property. They're occupied, but the sign has been there for a year or two. Does it take a year or two to foreclose on a home?
Well, in California, they had a moratorium, but those homes that were included in that moratorium should have been gone to foreclosure already because there's been enough time expanded. So the banks are hiding them. And the reason for that is, number one, they can't sell them. Number two, if they have 20 homes in one area out of 80, they don't want all of them being for sale at the same time, so they'll put up 8 or 10 of them. And also, once they put them up for sale, they have to qualify them on their balance sheets as empty and put a value on them, which brings down the value of their equity in their bank, if that's who's doing the lending. And so there's a whole daisy chain of things that go on between the empty house and between the bank.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a break, and we'll be back in about 5 minutes with Mr. Chapman and his insight of what's going on out there. This is Drew Rage with a Marines Disquisition, heard live around the world on Wind Talkers Radio Network.